Jags at the Commanders, and this is an interesting one. This has come off of the 3. It is now 2.5 in favor of the Commanders. The Jaguars taking a bunch of money. This was another release by another influential betting group out there that took the Jags at the 3 and knocked this thing down to the 2.5. 43.5 to 44 is your total here. So, Steven, we take a look. The Jags cannot be worse than they were last year. And I'm actually giving the Jags the benefit of the doubt here, and I'm kind of wiping some of the stuff from last year off of the slate because they were just never in a position to succeed. There were rumors coming out that Urban Meyer had lost that locker room before the season even started, and then we know for sure what happened as the season got going. It became a complete joke. He was a joke. These guys didn't respect him, and of course, that ends up costing him his job. So it's an almost impossible situation for a rookie quarterback to come into when you've got no leadership. You absolutely have no locker room camaraderie around your coach and around your staff and no belief and things like that. And so for me, I'm kind of looking at this Jags team as just through a lens that's completely clean from anything that I saw last year. On the Commander side of things, hey, you went out and got Carson Wentz. Cool. I think that that's at neutral at best, if not, and if anything, a downgrade for me. I liked it at 3 a lot, this Jags team. It's off of that now. I was unable to get to that, so I did pair this Jags team up with a couple of these other legs that we like in teasers, getting the 2.5 up to the 8.5. Even if the Commanders win this game and figure out a way, even if we get vintage Carson Wentz pre-injury, I cannot see with what this team has on the field how they are able to blow really anybody out this season. And so with that, I'll gladly take it up to 8.5, gladly back this Jags team that I actually really like what they did in the offseason. I really like what they did in the draft. And so I think they're going to surprise some people. Kind of like the Lions. I think they're going to be annoying all year long.
Yeah, this is a team I'm going to look to back as a dog at various points throughout this season, especially in the first half. But for week 1, I think we would all agree that the range of outcomes here is still pretty wide with the new regime and a guy like Trevor Lawrence, who we all thought was going to be a very solid quarterback coming out. Perhaps it clicks in week 1. Perhaps this is still a work in progress. We just have really no way of knowing going into the first week of the season. So at this point, I did bet this 3.5, but sometimes when we record the show on Fridays, that number is going to be gone. Right now, you're looking at 2.5. I would not bet the Jaguars at plus 2.5. I would only consider a teaser leg, but considering the range of outcomes I just talked about, I think it is a dangerous teaser leg. I think that there is volatility here. So I think in a slate where we really have, to Adam's point, 8 different teams that fit the mold as a teaser leg, there's plenty of other options to choose from than having to force Jacksonville into a 2-leg teaser here. So no interest for me on this one. But to your point with Washington, I'm going to look to fade them as a favorite throughout the season. I bet them under the win total. Carson Wentz is one of the most inaccurate quarterbacks. His numbers were worse than Taylor Heineke at multiple levels in terms of average depth of target. And it might be as early as next week when they open on the look ahead as a small favorite against the Detroit Lions on the road.
Adam, look, Doug Peterson from Urban Meyer to Doug Peterson is just an infinite upgrade right off the bat for this Jags team. You bring in Brandon Sheriff on the offensive line. Look, no matter what you think about whether they paid him too much money or not, Christian Kirk has been productive in the NFL. So like let's just, I don't want the contract to, like, for whatever reason, I think people look at people's talent level based off of their contract. It's like, that's not what we should be doing when we're handicapping games. Like, that doesn't matter to us. If a team overpays for a guy, it just is what it is. Christian Kirk has been productive at the NFL level. You bring him in at the wide receiver position. You got Folo there on the defensive line. You got Darius Williams at corner. So they made some upgrades. Arden Key's going to be in there on the rotation. Again, no matter what if they paid him too much money or not, Zay Jones as a 4th option is not a bad thing. Again, he doesn't have to be a primary receiver or anything like that for this squad. Then Trayvon Walker and Devin Lloyd in the first round with 2 first-round picks. Like, I think, and basically another first-round pick because you're getting Travis Etienne back, who never played a game for you last season. So, I mean, you can basically count that as a new draft pick for you, too, or a free agency signing. I think that this Jags team is pretty interesting, and I certainly can't see a scenario in which this Commander squad blows them out of the water.
When I look at the Jacksonville Jaguars for this year, I see one of the biggest questions in all of the NFL, and I think it's maybe a top 10 storyline in the league this year. Who's Trevor Lawrence? Mm-hmm. We need to find out the answer this year. We had no chance to learn who Trevor Lawrence was last year. So you can look at a bunch of stats and talk about him leading the NFL in interceptions. I don't care. Don't throw any of those stats at me from year one, because there's so little that we can use that is stable to evaluate Trevor Lawrence from last year. Now, look at what you just mentioned in terms of who they have catching the football. If we want to find out who Trevor Lawrence is, one of the biggest things we need to have is receivers who can separate and give Trevor Lawrence a place to throw the ball. Now, I'm not going to tell you that anyone that they have catching the ball is a number one receiver in the NFL, but this might be one of the more impressive collections of 2s and 3s who are being paid as 1s, but they are guys who can separate a little bit in the NFL. If it's Kirk, if it's Jones, if it's Marvin Jones, for that matter, if it's Evan Engram coming over from the Giants. You mentioned Etienne, who was overdrafted, obviously, but has talent. And so you see a lot of guys who are going to give Trevor Lawrence looks. Now, is Washington the defense to cause them problems? Well, especially while Chase Young is still out, right? And they don't have that fearsome front seven that we saw a couple of years ago that caused a lot of problems for other teams. So I have the Jaguars in teaser leg at plus 8.5. In fact, Jags-Ravens is probably my favorite combination for a teaser this week. The other side of this is Carson Wentz. And is he going to be an upgrade in Washington? He has to be over Taylor Heineke. But by how much? Not a lot. In fact, I have these two teams power rated right next to each other. I have about a half-point difference between Washington and Jacksonville coming into this season. And if we are to say, okay, is Carson Wentz going to be better? Okay, fine. If you're a person who believes that, then you can believe that.
Sure.
Who knows Carson Wentz very well, Matt? The new head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Doug Peterson, knows Carson Wentz about as well as you can know someone. So for this week in particular, I understand if you don't want to get involved at the 2.5 versus the 3. And by the way, if you're new to all this, understand how big a move that is. Anything that comes off a 3, either direction, that's a major move for the sportsbook because of how likely the 3 is as an outcome. For this week, though, I don't see 8.5 points of difference between Jacksonville and Washington.
Yeah, not me neither. I love this one as well. Have it in multiple different ways, and I can be proven wrong. Carson Wentz proved me wrong, but I think he's a bottom 6 quarterback in all the NFL. And before the season's over, I think not only do we see Heineke, I think we see Howell as well before it's over with there in Washington.